In this video I set up motor boats as the second boat type. The video covers making a speedboat and it can be entered using the F key. The W key moves the boat forward and there is a propeller spinning sound effect. The boat can be steered using A and D. Motor boats can be reversed using the S key and the force values can easily be changed. The system features accessories such as propeller boxes which rotate based on the steer direction. The propellers spin underwater and there are bubbles particle for visuals. You can add extra features to the boat such as the lights toggling here for the speedboat as well as the lever below it which goes forward or back based on if driving or reversing. IK is also used for the wheels so it is realistic and the player holds them as it spins. The template can be used to make any boat such as this fishing boat. The fishing boat uses a different setup where the propeller stays static but there is a nozzle that rotates. I added a physics object hook to the back of this as an extra feature as well as an option to toggle the lights, which looks particularly nice in a night scene. If you purchase the project files, you will get 6 exclusive boat examples. The models are from Sketchfab. The first one is this inflatable motor boat. This one includes a different boat interaction where the player holds and rotates the propeller box's lever to propel and steer the boat. Next is the stand-up motor boat where the player is standing and uses the wheel with IK. Next is a police boat. This one has sirens that can be toggled with sounds and an emissive material so it actually lights up the surroundings. Next is a simple houseboat. Here you can see foam is working. It should work for all of them but there are some issues with it which is possibly since it is an experimental plugin so it may not work exactly as expected every time. Next is a tugboat. This one has spinners at the top that rotate when the boat moves. There is also a different dual propeller setup for this one which rotates in opposite directions. This one also has lights that can be toggled. Finally is a yacht. This moves slower than the other ones as it is a larger ship. It also looks particularly nice at night with the lights toggled on. There is a horn that can be activated as well. You can use the template to make any other type of boat you want easily. This video will require a boat template actor which I showed how to make in the master boat video. I will put a link to that video in the description below. It is also important to mention that the terminology and functionality may not be 100% accurate since I'm not a boat expert and just did it based on what I thought would look the best. First I will make a folder for motor boats. For the motor boat I will use the speedboat model from Sketchfab by this user. I modified the boat in Blender. You need the main boat mesh, and all of them should have the default transform which you can do in Blender by pressing Ctrl A and selecting all transforms. I separated the components such as the wheel. This one had a propeller box. Then I separated the actual propeller which will be attached to the box instead of the boat. Finally is the hull collision which I explained in the master boat video. This is just a single outline of the boat with no accessories or obstructions inside. I imported them to Unreal Engine and set up the materials off camera. Open the speedboat and add 26 DOP collision. We need to add some sockets. First is player socket and position this on the seat. I am not as accurate with the position since IK takes care of it mostly. Then add a wheel socket. You can set the preview static mesh so you know exactly where it should go. Then add one called propeller box socket 0 and make sure to name them exactly as I am as the code will not work otherwise. Make sure to add another one and change the name to propeller box socket 1 if your boat needs it. Set the material of the hull collision to the hull opacity 1 which is just a masked and unlit material with opacity mask set to 0. Next open the propeller box and add a socket called propeller socket. Position it where the propeller should be. Finally, open the wheel mesh and add sockets called left IK and right IK, positioning them accordingly. Now I will get this pedal boat noise sound effect from Pixabay. You can use any sound you want. Import it in Engine. Make sure to set it to looping. We need to make some new enums and structures for the new propeller box mechanic. Make an enumeration called propeller type with the values none, propellers, and propeller boxes. Propellers is for ones that are attached directly to the boat instead of a box that rotates. Now duplicate both propeller structures and rename them for the box. Rename the speed variable in them to rotation and add a new Boolean variable called steer which controls whether it rotates when steered or not. Now go to the boat pawn actor as we need to make some minor changes. In Add Mesh Attached, make the parent an input. In the construction script, set the parent to the boat mesh for the currently used Add Mesh Attached functions. Now copy the code shown. Duplicate the propeller variables and change them to the corresponding propeller box ones. If just propellers, it will be the original code setup. This code adds propeller boxes to each socket. This part adds the propellers to the propeller boxes instead of the boat mesh if it is valid. With this setup you can have propellers on boxes or not based on the socket names. Add a new pin to the sequence and copy the following code for a nozzle setup. It is the same as how we set up the wheels. Make new variables for the mesh and return value. In the event graph make a new custom event called nozzle rotation and copy the shown code. It uses the smooth relative rotation function we made to rotate it based on the input x value. Set the default value of nozzle rotation amount to something like 20, but it can be changed easily in child classes for different boats. I will now comment the event. Now make a child blueprint of the boat pawn actor and name it motor boat actor. Open it. First change the boat mesh to the motor one and change the hull collision mesh to the corresponding one too. Adjust the enter range extent and Z position to match the new boat. Then adjust the exit position. Now use a temporary scene component to set up the correct buoyancy pontoon positions. Add the actor to the level. You can use the following console command after pressing back quote to visualize the pontoons. Now it is floating properly. Play around with the values until it looks right for you. You may need to adjust the mesh's mass and the buoyancy coefficient too. These values worked for me. You can enter the boat and the player will sit in it. Now click the root component and go to the propeller setup category. This one uses propeller boxes, so I will change the type to that. Add an element to the propeller boxes setup. Set the mesh to the propeller box 1 and set it to steer. I will increase the rotation amount too. I need 2, so we'll add another one. It will show up once you add propellers too. If you have two, make sure to negate one of the speeds so they spin in opposite directions. The propellers and boxes are showing up now. Now open the wheel category and set it accordingly. You can change the boat enter type for different boat types, which I will show an example of at the end of the video. Nozzles can also be added. This is basically a board at the back that rotates when steering. Now go to the event graph and make some space for the begin play. Add the fluid simulation function. Adjust the foam scene so it matches the new boat. My boat pivot isn't exactly at the mesh's bottom, so I will quickly adjust it in engine using the modeling tools. Then spawn the propeller sound. We are setting its default volume to 0 since it should only be heard when the boat is moving. Now make a custom event called Motor Boat Timer and copy the shown code. This code rotates every propeller we added to the boat in the given direction smoothly based on the forward held input amount. For propeller boxes, add a sequence and connect it to the previous one, as we still want to rotate the propellers. This rotates the propeller boxes based on the side held input amount if the steer value is set to true for that propeller. In then 1, call the set wheel rotation event. We need to make some minor adjustments to it. Now the wheel's axis can be changed for different boats in the setup. Copy the next code. This sets the volume of the propellers between 0 and 4 based on if the current speed is at 0 or the maximum move forward amount. You can change the out range B if you want the max value to be quieter or louder. This checks if there is no movement input and the held amount smooth have returned back to nearly 0. This makes the check smoother and not a snapping one. This prevents the timer from stopping unless the wheel rotation has been reset by the interpolation. Finally, it checks that the boat is idle. The error tolerance is something close to 0, so it doesn't have to be exactly 0 for it to stop the timer. This timer event runs while there is boat input given only, and it stops if the boat is idle. This is code that we want to run around every frame during boat input, but adding it in tick is not the best for performance, so we use a timer to activate it only when needed. Add one more pin and add the following code. This is to slowly reduce the input multiplier for motor boats once released, since we don't want to immediately set it back to 0. This will make the propeller slowly start and stop. Now we will do the IA move input event. Make sure to use triggered so the motor boat will continue moving while the keys are held down. Also set the propeller input multiplier to 0 once the clear boat timer event is called. Make sure to set the function name to the motor boat timer 1 exactly with case sensitivity. This starts the timer if movement input is given and force is added to it using the event. We start the timer even if not moving forward here, since we still want the nozzles and propeller boxes to rotate, as well as the wheel. This dampening factor reduces the threshold required to reach the max torque amount, and if not moving forward, the boat can't be steered either. I will now comment the function. It is kind of working, but there are some issues to fix. First, I will reduce the torque amount as it rotates far too much. Next, I will adjust the mass, buoyancy coefficient, and pontoon Z height. The propellers were rotating on the incorrect axis. It should be roll if you have set up the meshes correctly and they are facing forward. Also remove this -1 multiplier from the set wheel rotation. The wheel is also too low down for the IK to work properly without further adjustments, so I will just modify the boat mesh off camera later to raise the height. The propellers are now rotating correctly. It is easier to see them in F2 view, which is unlit. The wheel is also rotating as expected. The player is sinking, which is due to the foot IK, so you can either disable it or adjust the player socket until it looks right. The torque amount is much more realistic now too. Also, the propeller boxes are rotating to the steer direction smoothly. You can adjust the rotation amount of the propeller boxes to the max one it should rotate to. I will fix this wobbling issue shortly. You can exit the boat too. One way to fix the intense wobbling is to play around with the water waves asset of the water body ocean to make it calmer. By default it will be still water, so the boat will ride smoothly without any bumps. But if you want a wavy ocean, then you can either reduce the wave amplitude or adjust the pontoons and coefficients so it isn't as bumpy. It is not wobbling as much now. Also, if you ride on land, the boat will eventually stop moving as fast and the speed is clamped. Make sure to set the fluid sim reference value for the boat. I will now show how to add propeller bubble particles. Add a sequence to the motor boat timer before the propeller code and copy the code. We are adding this delay so it spawns with intervals. There are 3 final additions. First is that if we exit the boat while moving, the timer doesn't clear properly. Go to the boat pawn actor and remove the clear boat timer from here. Now it gradually stops the propellers and sounds, etc. Second is an issue with the propeller boxes not resetting when input is released. Make the following change in the motor boat actor. Finally, we will add the ability to reverse the boat, which motor boats can apparently do. In the boat pawn actor, modify the force boat event as shown. This simply negates the move force if reversing, so it moves backwards. This lets us change the speed for reversing so it is slower than if driving forward. The value range for this should be between 0 and 1. Now go to the motor boat actor and make the following changes in the move input event. Change this condition in motor boat timer as well. The boat rotations are working correctly now, as you can see with the propeller boxes and wheel. I also adjusted the player socket and boat mesh off cameras, so there are no issues now. Also, the foam is working now, but it wasn't working for the preview, which I explained is probably an experimental issue I couldn't find a solid fix for. The propellers are rotating and the bubbles particles are spawning too. You can add any extra features you want, like I did with the red and green lights toggling based on if the boat is moving or not, and the lever. That is all for the main video. I will now quickly show how to make any other type of motor boat using the template. I will add this fishing boat made by this user from Sketchfab. Again, you need to isolate the meshes in an external program like I explained at the start. This one had some cables, so I removed them from the mesh so I can add them in engine using the cable component. This one uses a nozzle, unlike the previous boat which used propeller boxes. This one has some extras too, such as a fishing hook. I have already imported them in engine and applied the materials. I also added sockets where each cable should start and end, as well as other extra sockets for any accessories. I will now add the propeller and nozzle sockets. The rest is the same as we did before. Add collision to it and any other physics objects. I will create a child class of the motor boat actor for the fishing boat. Then just repeat the steps I showed at the start, such as changing the mesh and components. This time the propeller setup is just propellers and not boxes. We only need one. Adding nozzles will also work. I will now adjust the other components, then add the boat to the level. This boat has no visible location to sit or stand in, so I will use the player hidden option for the boat enter type. The propeller and nozzle works. I will now add cables using the cable component. This is a bit buggy when used with ponds, so I just set them to be static eventually. I then added a swinging hook with physics constraints at the back. I made it collide precisely with the boat mesh by duplicating it and setting its collision complexity to use complex collision as simple. Then I set up new trace and object channels to ensure the hook only collides with the new boat and vice versa. The hook works properly. I then added a function to toggle lights. The mesh has a different material slot for lights, so it can be changed separately. I am using sockets here to spawn light sources directly so it illuminates the surroundings. It works and is seen better in this night scene. The intensity can be changed for the material and the light sources ones can be changed in the function. This is just an example and can be adapted for your needs. There is this error with boats that have their enter type set to player hidden. The player is still there but just hidden at the boat's center, meaning they will be underwater. This makes the swimming mechanic activate, so to fix this, go to the character blueprint and attach actor to actor after setting actor hidden in game. Then just add a player socket to the boat anyway so it is hidden but above water. That is all for this video. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe for more content. You can purchase this final result from Gumroad using the link in the description if you want. The project files will include an exclusive set of boat examples which include an inflatable motor boat, Walkaround, police boat, houseboat, tugboat, and large yacht, some of them coming with extra features and functionality. The fishing boat is also included. The project files also come with the realistic island example including a night scene. The swimming and oxygen system is also included. Also, each boat type will be sold separately, but if you purchase any one of them, you will be given a 75% off discount code to be used for the other boats. Thanks for watching.